Well, it's hard to come after that, but Walter Greenleaf is one of the few people in the world who can. He is also a luminary in this space and somebody who I mentioned yesterday as one of the real founders of this field. He's been at Stanford for a long time, for over, I think, 35 years. I've been working on virtual reality, technology development, wearable biosensors, a whole wide variety of technologies. So thank you again for being with us today, and I look forward to your comments.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's so exciting to be here. And it's been an exciting conference, hasn't it? Hunter, I was just thinking, we've been getting by on our good looks for so long, but with new people coming into the field, we have to up our game. So, no, I'm excited in particular because I think we are at a precipice of surge. There's many reasons to feel that way, but just looking at the energy in this room, the people out with demonstrating their products that are coming forward to market, the foundation of research that has come to a point that we're at, I really do feel that the next few years are going to be very dramatic. And I think we also have to work together as we approach that point. When the large medical device companies, large pharmaceutical companies, the healthcare networks, and insurance carriers, which we all want to get deeply involved in this arena as we move this enabling technology forward. But as they come in, we want to make sure that they enhance and extend the creativity and all the hard work that the people in this room and other places have done. So let's work together to do that. So I'm going to try and cover a lot of ground. It's going to be easier because many of the other speakers have already said some of the things I'm going to be saying. So there'll be a little bit of redundancy, but I want to give a bit of an overarching context of what I have seen as I move around now and talking to colleagues about how the future may play out and to think a little bit about that. I'll spend a few minutes on the research and technology foundation for what we're doing, but I think that's been well stated in this room earlier. Because I'm a neuroscientist, I have to talk a little bit about why VR, AR, mixed reality, augmented reality technologies have such profound impact in healthcare and how they perform as a method of adherence. I'll give a little bit of talk about the whole spectrum of applications because I also want to have us talk a little bit about the understructure of VR and AR and immersive technologies and how that's going to fit into the rest of the healthcare ecosystem. A few minutes on the concerns and challenges, and then I'll take the risk of talking about a few speculative things that might happen. And I think I can do that in about 12 minutes or so. So let's see how it goes. And again, what I want to emphasize is that it's really important that we work together. I don't see anyone, either in the academic arena or in the commercial arena, that should feel like they're a competitor. Our opportunity is to lift the whole arena up together, and we can't do that if we're feeling like my product or my research is not compatible with somebody else's. So I think we really do need to work together, and I'm so appreciative of the VMed group and the IVRA group and what's going on with Mark and putting us together in a society. I think it's so fantastic. So again, let's be sure to work together as we move forward. For me, I think we've got three urgent, big issues that we have to address right now. I'm very conscious of the healthcare crisis that's looming because of an aging population. It's not a matter of theory, it's just a matter of doing the math. We've got 10 or 15 years before, with worldwide an aging population, with us all living a lot longer, to have an economic collapse. We cannot support the 3 out of every 7 of us that will have a neurodegenerative disease in our 80s and 90s with the high top-heavy percentage of people. Just in the US, our population's doubled since the 1970s. Our family size has shrunk. We won't have enough informal caregivers to take care of the population. We can't build the buildings fast enough. We won't have the caregivers. So we have to leverage technology. It's the only way we can go. And it's not just cognitive aging. It's also what's been going on with all the other diseases that we haven't gotten a handle of, the increased percentage of those as we age. And then also the demand on healthcare that we all are aware of. There's a crisis involving our healthcare workers, of course, but also in pediatric care, the care of our youth who went through a very challenging time, a lot of stress. So there's issues that we have to build new solutions for, and we have to do it fast. And we don't have to do it just for the social reasons. We have to also do it for the economic reasons, because it's going to be, I think, more impactful than climate change if we don't get our heads on these three looming healthcare crises. So I'll take from Daniel Kraft's presentation. One of the things we need to do is move the timing of how we intervene earlier to get ahead of it by working on health and wellness. If we wait till end-of-life care, it's too expensive. We also have to shift the locus of care, move it to where we are. Instead of the point of care being at a clinic or a hospital, it should be with us. We have to do that. And the only way we can do that is to leverage technology. It's the only way. Fortunately, and I love this quote by William Gibson, the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. We have solutions to these three healthcare crises. So we just have to rally and work together to promulgate, to get them out there, and make sure we do it in a culturally diverse and age-appropriate manner. But we have the technology to address those problems. So with that in mind, I do work with a number of academic groups at Stanford. That's my home base. But I also try and work with other universities. And because we have to make products, I also try and work with some of the early stage VR and AR mixed reality companies and a few of the larger healthcare networks and tech companies, and one little fun project with NASA that I might have time to mention today. So I'm very conflicted in that regard, that I try and work with every group I can to help move things forward, but I'd like to feel that I'm so distributed in that manner that I'm non-denominational, happy to work with anyone in this room to help as we move our field forward. So we're in the middle of a digital health revolution, thank goodness. We are shifting the center of care to where the patient is. We've moved from the analog world to the digital world, where it used to be physical charts and things that you would write down. Now it's moving to digital, thank goodness, because that allows us to do so many things. And it's not just our EMRs, we're collecting a lot of personal data as we move forward to entering the era of medical wearables. I guess I could ask who is wearing a medical wearable now, but it might be more interesting to say how many people aren't wearing a medical wearable of some sort. Just a few. Well, maybe more than just a few. But I would argue that your cell phone is also a medical wearable. The passive data that we can collect from our cell phones about our behavior and our attention, who we're interacting with, where we're going, that can be diagnostic too, should we opt in to do that. And I think we also need to appreciate that the existing systems that we have in place with pharmaceuticals, for example, are complementary to a digital healthcare system. So we now are seeing a lot of examples where big pharma, big med device companies are looking to use their existing channels of promulgation of their products for digital healthcare products also. And again, with more than half the world's population having access to a healthcare system, their digital health phone, we have a pathway to push transmedia products. We may use VR, AR, mixed reality technology to promote adherence, but we also can collect data and provide reminders and information using cell phone technology and wearable sensor technology. So when you think about it, there's a huge opportunity to aggregate data, to do it in a federated manner, where we can use the data that we're collecting from our behavior, our interactions, our healthcare experiences, and as long as we're careful about maintaining privacy, which I think we're getting better at doing that, we have a way of pushing information, harvesting information, analyzing information in a way to come up with some very powerful ways of coming up with better protocols, better interventions. And it's not just the physical information that we're collecting, we're also getting so much better at understanding the things that relate to our brain health. We can collect passive data from our smartphones, voice analytics as a biomarker, facial expressions, nonverbal movement. Our webcams can capture this. Again, we need to do this in a way that respects our privacy, but it is moving forward in a way that we collect so much information that will make a big difference in psychiatry and psychology in particular, where we've been relying on subjective measurements for so long. So I want to spend a moment on talking about some of the confluent technologies that are coming out. I think it was a mistake spent so much time trying to talk to people over that salsa band that was here on Wednesday night. A little bit hoarse, but it was worth it. So we're seeing an evolution of ubiquitous sensors. They're being built into everything that we buy or structures that we build. We're starting to come up with new imaging technologies such as FNIRS and others that can capture less expensively than before functional information about our brain. You don't have to go into a machine to do this. We can do it in the wild while people are behaving. We're getting information about our metabolic status with lab on the skin sensors. And again, the AI systems, machine learning, predictive analytics, generative AI is allowing us to do so much with the data that we're collecting. And I think it's important to realize that there's a shifting business landscape too. The tech titans are moving into healthcare, and that will make a big difference. Of course, the shifting regulatory landscape, importance on telemedicine, and the focus on mental health puts us in a great position to make strides forward. And this is something I think we need to think a little bit about. If you think about where technology is going, to talk about Wayne Gretzky and looking to where the puck is moving, we know that the tech titans are going to focus on improving their interface with us by personalizing their experiences based on biosignals. They will use their technology to capture how attentive we are, how awake we are, how cognitively impaired we might be, perhaps due to aging or perhaps due to lack of sleep or alcohol, to make our cars, our buildings, our communication devices, the way we interact with each other, we can predict that that's where technology will go. And we can shape it, because we can predict it, for our own medical purposes. So I invite you to think about how we can leverage that to move healthcare forward. Technology will be designed to personalize our interaction with the rest of the world and with each other. And that's something that we can use too. I think looking at how we'll navigate with our cars, how we'll interact with each other, there'll be a layer of technology that captures our intention, our goals, depending on how much we choose to share, what we want to accomplish that day or that week or that year. And that information is going to be very important for the rest of the superstructure of healthcare. Now, there's a whole science behind effective computing, in addition to studying our cognitive processes, studying our emotional processes. And it's a very deep field, and it is moving into our zone. There's groups that are spending decades looking and teasing out, and in some cases using evocative VR environments to do this. How do we understand the social, emotional aspect of how we interact with each other, how we interact with technology? How do we parse that? How do we score it? There's some simple things such as, well, it's not that simple, but it can be done, using voice. Several companies are working in this arena as a biomarker for mental health and status, capturing EEG signals. I'm impressed by what MTech Labs has done of putting an insert into the VR headset to capture signals and coming up with a score, a valence of emotional state. And we're also seeing the digital twin paradigm evolve, where we're not just going to be making models of our buildings and our factories, but of us, and using that as a platform for decision-making and simulation. So with all the wearable sensor data, all the behavioral data, all the data we're collecting from the sensors that are around us, it's not just going to be us, it's also going to be communities with a layer of, on top of that, of group health, family health, and community health. So a huge amount of information. Fortunately, with today's tools, we'll be able to parse that data and make sense of it. And we can use that for physicians, for example, to do a more precision, predictive way of managing a patient's health. One example I like to point to is what's being done in the field of multiple sclerosis. And then I think the role of the clinician is obviously changing. We're not just going to be an information foundation of information. I think clinicians will become information managers. And that, I think, is incumbent upon us to do a better job of designing the dashboards, the user interface. Anything that is going to burden the clinical community at all will be unacceptable and won't be brought in. Maybe some of the early adopters will bring in something that takes a little bit more time or is a little bit more challenging to use, but it won't go very much further. So it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we do not add any extra time burden or complexity to the systems we build and burden our clinical community any further. If we do good design, we can design to improve efficiency as opposed to challenging it. So I think when asked, will AI eliminate jobs in the clinical community, I think it's only those who do not embrace it. But again, we have to put the right job of designing it the proper way. So to get back to where we are with medical extended reality systems, I think we have a foundation of significant research and development. As it's become much more affordable and much more, I think, socially acceptable to use this types of technology, I think we're poised to move into the mainstream. And it's really the full stack of healthcare, as you've seen at this conference. Training, assessments, interventions, reaching remote populations, underserved populations, a focus on prevention and wellness, and ways to enhance research. All of healthcare is being impacted by the technology that we're excited about. And again, I think you've heard this now, especially Hunter. I love those headsets. And actually, it was a little bit traumatic to see them again because they were so painful. But it reminds us how far we've gone. And I first got involved back when I had a different color of hair and more of it, back in the analog days. And I think that's a similar headset to the one that you used. So much has happened since then. And so many people have put their whole careers into getting us to this point of departure right now, and many of them who are here today. And again, as emphasized earlier, there's a large amount of foundational research, which I encourage people to go back and take a look at, because some of the problems that people are running in today have been addressed in the research literature, but people don't often realize they need to go back and take a look to understand what those barriers are. So it's exciting that we're having new technology evolve that complements what we've been doing with the head-mounted displays and other systems, haptic feedback, olfactory feedback, better avatars that can look like us, sound like us, and convey our emotional state. Virtual world technology. I think we're on the precipice of that with cloud-based rendering. We don't have to have our avatars look like robots. We can have avatars that convey emotional state, and not just the easy stuff, but when there's a group of avatars and another avatar walks up, we have the algorithms to slightly shift our positions to welcome them into the group or exclude them if that's a choice. Things that we do automatically need to be conveyed to our virtual worlds, and I think that is starting to happen. So I need to update this list. There's so many groups out there doing amazing work, but it's almost every area of clinical care is seeing new technology predicated upon immersive technologies as part of what they're doing. I can't find a single area of healthcare that has not been impacted by this technology. And of course, in the US, it's important to pay attention to where things are going in terms of reimbursement codes, and we're seeing some progress there. And then with our friends at the VA healthcare system leading the way by now, I think it was more than 40 different indications that they're working with and several thousand clinicians and headsets in use. It's just incredible. So again, I think it's important to realize that one of the powerful aspects of using immersive systems is how they promote adherence. If we contrast what we're doing with immersive systems to what's also being done by other areas of digital health, such as mobile health applications, what we do see is better adherence because we can activate the parts of the brain that are rewarding. We can make the experience of being part of healthcare, and Hunter, again, you showed us that with Snow World, by creating something that is novel, that is dynamic, that is interactive, and we can also, as Brendan pointed out in his opening speech, use the principles of embodiment to promote adherence. And I also think it's something that we're just starting to realize that we can do, is that we can put a layer of storytelling on top of what we're doing. I think the way we learn, the way we return things, and I wish I could have put a story into this talk. I really couldn't think of a good way to do that. But I think if we can put a narrative story on top of the healthcare experience, it can make it a lot more functional and promote better adherence. I think right now we do that with some of the gamification we do, but I think we can also extend that to go over multiple sessions, not just the one-time experience an individual has. So when we compare what we see in immersive systems with the standard way, big dramatic difference. And I don't think it's just a novelty. Again, I think it's the interactive nature of the technology and also the fact that we are able to put that layer of narrative story into the VR experience. And again, I think the fact that we can leverage our mirror neurons, have empathy not just for each other, but for ourselves to promote healthcare, very powerful tool. So I think everybody in this room knows how we've been using VR and AR for training. We're also using it for improved assessments. I think in particular, it's going to be amazing what we're going to be able to do in the field of psychiatry and psychology with better cognitive assessments and better assessments related to social emotional state. We don't always have to have a head-mounted display to do that. We can use room-based systems to do the assessments. And I'm very impressed by the work of Neo Avra, doing very sophisticated assessments, not just of cognitive function, but of social, emotional, and physical function to come up with a very detailed report. If you think about it, being able to evoke a cognitive state or an emotional state using VR is the best way to evaluate. If we just ask someone to tell us how they felt the other day or to recall how a medication impacted them, we're limited. It's analog and it's subjective. But by being able to use VR to create an emotional reaction, we can measure how people respond. And we can do it again in a culturally diverse and age-appropriate manner, especially with the help of generative AI. So what we do need to do as a field is come up with a library of evocative environments. We have some. One of the projects we did at Stanford was to come up with some 360 video that it generated, in general, some of the basic emotional states, but it was very limited. So I'm hoping that there's someone who would take this on as a project to start coming up with the evocative environments that can be used across our field to help us compare the results of different research programs. And I think this will lead us to better ways of identifying subtypes. All too often, we tend to put patient groups, especially in behavioral medicine, into one category. I love the work of Lee Williams and her group at the Stanford Center for Precision Mental Health and Wellness, where they use technology, including VR technology, to identify different subtypes of depression, for example. I think that's going to be so important as we come forward and match patients to the right type of care. I'm also very impressed by the work of groups like Adam Ghazali at the Neuroscape Lab in San Francisco. Adam was able to use immersive environments as a way to teach people in their 60s and 70s to score in the same zone in terms of executive function as people in their 20s. He went back years later to see if that change persisted, and it did. So we have new ways to address cognitive aging, leveraging technology. So we have an urgent need to address the issues of mental health care. So much work has been done, almost all, well, I think every aspect of mental health, serious mental illness has been addressed with some pretty well-designed products. We have more work to do, of course, but we're working on it. Excited by, especially with things like addictions, how we can teach refusal skills or situational confidence. And then new ways to address health and wellness, leveraging VR and immersive technologies. And I had a fun little project talking to the group that's working on the mission to Mars. You can imagine what it's like to be cooped up in the same small room with your roommates for a scary 2.5 years or longer. How do you select those people, and how do you help them manage their emotional state using technology and communications and impact? It's a hard problem, but I think if that is an example of the sort of problem that we can migrate to other parts of healthcare. So very briefly, what are our biggest constraints and challenges? Well, I think one issue is the privacy issue. As we get better at measuring, evaluating, putting onto networks, we've talked already about securing that data, but we also, I think, have to look at what's going to happen as the tech titans and others start using publicly available data about ourselves that can be collected for webcams or our behavior in an online game to come up with a fingerprint of what we're like, how impulsive are we, how measured are we in our responses. We do have to think that through, and I think our zone is going to be an area that's going to be sort of at the battle zone front lines for that, as we collect data that's going to be used to identify better healthcare pathways. That same data can be used to sell us things, or if we happen to be dissidents, can be used to identify us and sort this out. There's research gaps. There's been some amazing research, but it's been with previous generations of technology, small sample sizes. And I think we've also done, well, you know, there is a procession of us doing work on a gaming platform. That will change. We need to do a better job of making sure we design our products to match healthcare needs in a way that pays attention to the constraints of it, the healthcare ecosystem. If more time has to be spent charging the batteries or understanding the patient dashboard, we need to make sure that we design for improving efficacy and reducing costs overall. And all too often that doesn't happen. And then I think we have a huge issue of interoperability. This is a big problem. If you are a clinic and you have someone with comorbid conditions and they need 3 different headsets to do that with 4 different ways of interacting and moving through the environment, it's a problem. So there are some programs in place to do that. I'm excited by some of the work that's being done at the Veterans Health Administration. And Laura Kusumono, so excited that you're working on that project. And to get back to my concern about an aging population, I am excited about the potential. Almost every major issue in senior care, just as one example of a healthcare issue, is going to be impacted by the work that's being done by this group. And we have to be careful, again, just as we need to design for not being a burden in the healthcare environment as we bring out these products. I also think even though senior care and cognitive aging is going to be a big issue moving forward, we have to design to make sure it's invisible, that we can bring this new technology forward in a way that does not get in our way. Well, again, just to summarize, I think it's something that we need to work on together if we're going to make significant progress. So thankful you've put together the conference, and so glad to be part of this group.
Well, thank you for that overarching, comprehensive talk. It's a great way to end with asking lots of questions, posing lots of challenges for all of us to think about between next year and between this year and hopefully next year when we all come back